I'm 75 years old, and there's a quiet truth I've been carrying around for a long time now. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with a lesson neatly tied up. It's just something I wake up with most mornings, sitting on the edge of the bed, wondering how it all went by so fast and why no one ever talked about this part. I'm not saying my life was a disaster. It wasn't. I worked, I paid my bills, I raised children, I showed up where I was supposed to. From the outside, it probably looked fine, respectable even. But that's not what keeps me awake now. What keeps me awake is the weight of all the things I assumed I could get to later. At my age, time feels different. It's not just that there's less of it, it's that it's heavier. Every day carries the memory of the ones before it. You don't just live the day you're in, you live all of them at once. The mornings from 30 years ago sit right beside this one. The conversations you didn't have are as loud as the ones you did. I'm telling this now because I don't have much reason not to. I'm not trying to be admired, I'm not trying to fix my past. That door is closed. I'm talking because silence feels worse than honesty at this point. When I was younger, I truly believed life would slow down at some point. I thought there would be a stretch of years where things settled, where I'd finally have room to breathe, to notice, to enjoy what I'd built. I kept telling myself, just get through this part. Just handle this responsibility. There will be time later. Later became a habit. In my 20s, everything felt urgent. I was building something, or at least that's what I told myself. A job that demanded long hours, a marriage that needed stability, children who needed shoes, school supplies, structure. None of it was wrong. That's the part that's hardest to explain. I wasn't reckless, I wasn't cruel, I wasn't lazy, I was busy. I remember coming home tired in the evenings, loosening my tie, sitting at the kitchen table while dinner cooled. My kids would be talking at the same time, excited, loud. I'd nod, smile, tell them I'd listen in a minute. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. I assumed they'd always be there, always ready to talk. I remember my wife asking if we could take a walk after dinner, just around the block. I'd say maybe tomorrow. My legs were tired, my head was full. Tomorrow felt reasonable. Tomorrow was always reasonable. In my 30s and 40s, life became routine. Alarm clock, coffee, commute, work, dinner, television, sleep, repeat. Weekends were for errands, yard work, catching up. Vacations were planned but rushed. Pictures were taken, but we were always thinking about getting back. I told myself this was adulthood. This was what responsibility looked like. What I didn't realize was how quietly everything else was thinning out. Friendships faded without arguments. We just stopped calling. Conversations with my parents became shorter. I assumed they'd always be there to answer the phone. My body still worked then. My mind was sharp. Death felt abstract, like a headline meant for someone else. The cost didn't come all at once. That's what nobody warned me about. It didn't arrive with sirens or announcements. It arrived in small ways I barely noticed. A birthday I missed because of work. A school play I arrived late to, standing in the back so I wouldn't disrupt anyone. A Sunday afternoon where I chose a nap over sitting and talking. Each one seemed harmless, justifiable, necessary even. Years later, I'd struggle to remember specific days, but I could feel the absence they left behind. The first real crack came when my father got sick. I was in my 50s then, old enough to know better, young enough to still believe I had time. I visited when I could. I called when I remembered. I told myself he understood how busy I was. When he died, it wasn't dramatic. He went quietly, in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. I remember standing there, looking at his face, realizing how many questions I never asked him, how many stories I assumed I'd hear someday. That someday didn't come. After that, time started behaving differently. It didn't speed up exactly. It folded in on itself. Years began slipping by in chunks instead of days. My children grew up without asking permission. They moved out. They built lives that no longer revolved around me. I told myself this was how it was supposed to be. Parents raise children. Children leave. That's the order of things. But I wasn't prepared for how quiet the house would feel. I wasn't prepared for how invisible I'd start to feel in conversations. How often people would interrupt me without realizing it. How my opinions would slowly stop being asked for, not out of disrespect, but because the world had moved on. My wife and I drifted too, not in a dramatic way, no shouting, no betrayal, just a gradual turning inward. We talked about groceries, appointments, the weather. The deeper conversations were postponed so long they eventually felt awkward to start. When she passed, it wasn't sudden. Illness takes its time. I sat by her bed for weeks, holding her hand, thinking about all the evenings we didn't take that walk, all the words we saved for later. Later never came for us either. After the funeral, people checked in for a while. They brought food. They sat with me. They told me to call if I needed anything, and they meant it. But life pulled them back, and I was left with a chair across from me that stayed empty. This is the part no one really talks about. The loneliness that isn't dramatic. It's not crying every day. It's not despair. It's just a steady absence. Meals eaten alone. Conversations that happen only in your head. Days where no one says your name out loud. You start to realize how much of your identity was tied to being needed. I used to think success meant providing, making sure everyone was taken care of. And I did that, in my own way. But I confused being useful with being present. I thought there would be time to catch up on closeness once things were stable. Stability came, closeness didn't. There was a moment, a few years ago, that made everything painfully clear. I was cleaning out old boxes in the garage. Papers, photos, things I'd kept without remembering why. I found a stack of birthday cards from my kids when they were little. Crayon drawings, misspelled words, big feelings written in small hands. I sat on the concrete floor and cried harder than I ever have. Not because I didn't love them, but because I realized how much of that love I postponed expressing fully, assuming it was understood. Love needs time, not intention. Time. There are things now that simply can't be fixed. I can't go back and be a younger man with more patience. I can't replay those evenings. I can't ask my parents what it was like to be young. I can't sit beside my wife and talk about nothing. That's the finality of it. Some losses aren't dramatic enough to warn you. They don't feel like mistakes while you're making them. They feel like life. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I don't believe in giving instructions anymore. Everyone's life is different. Everyone carries their own weight. I'll just tell you what I wish I had understood. Time doesn't announce itself when it's leaving. The moments that matter most often look ordinary while they're happening. The conversation you're too tired for, the visit you postpone, the silence you choose because it feels easier than engaging. Those are the moments that come back later, asking for your attention when it's too late to give it. I thought being responsible meant enduring, pushing through, delaying joy until it was earned. I didn't realize joy doesn't wait patiently. It moves on. I'm not bitter. That surprises people when I say it. I have good memories. I had love in my life. I'm grateful for that. Gratitude and sorrow can exist in the same space. They do for me. What I feel now is acceptance, but it's a quiet, heavy kind. The kind that sits with you, not against you. My days are slower now. I notice things I rushed past before. Light through the window, the sound of birds in the morning. These moments are gentle, but they don't replace what's gone. They just keep me company. If this meant something to you, if it stirred something uncomfortable or familiar, you don't need to do anything with it right away. Just sit with it. That's enough. As for me, I don't have many years left. I can feel that. My body reminds me, my memory reminds me, I'm okay with it mostly. I just wish someone had warned me that the hardest part wouldn't be failure or loss. It would be realizing how much of life is lived on the assumption that there will be more time. There isn't always, and that's all I wanted to say.